fanned archived games. Read about the teams and players. Relive the big moments. Every season, the Trib Live High School Sports Network is your home for high school sports. The best seat in the house is on Trib HSSN.
Welcome into world headquarters of the Trib Live High School Sports Network. I'm Don Rubble. Welcome to the Week 6 edition of the WPIAL Scoreboard Show here on the Trib Live High School Sports Network. We are into October. Another brilliant day weather-wise here in southwestern Pennsylvania. It has been magnificent, except for maybe 2 days in September. And I know now we are into October, and that's now's the time. Over the next few weeks, we are separating contenders from pretenders, and fun time of year into October. And then, of course, the real fun begins with the WPIAL playoffs in the month of November. All right, let's give you the early final scores. We have getting final scores in. As they come in, we'll share them with you. We're not greedy. We'll pass those along. And we will have recaps from some of the better games. And some of the bigger games lived up to their hype, so to speak. You get a lot. Sometimes you build up a game and it's like, but this one, a lot of the games that were expected to be good turned out to be good. Others, not so much. All right. And our first few scores will indicate that. The Class 6A versus 5A non-conference game, you pretty much, this one definitely went as expected. Central Catholic 69, Shaler 7. For the season, Vikings have now won 6 in a row. They're 6-1. Opposite for Shaler, they dropped to 1-6. But remember, they're only 1-1 in the Northeast Conference. They got some big NEC games that will determine whether they are a playoff team or not. They didn't show it tonight as they get humbled by Central Catholic. Class 5A, Allegheny 6 Conference, Baldwin, the beat goes on. They lose at Bethel Park 75-14. Hawks even their conference record at 1-1. They're 5-2 overall. Baldwin 0-2, 0-7. They didn't want any mercy, and they didn't get any mercy tonight. 75-14. Bethel Park over Baldwin. Let's go to Class 4A now. Parkway Conference, Newcastle legit. 34-14, the Red Hurricanes over the visiting Montour Spartans, handing Montour their first conference loss. They're 1-1, 4-3 overall. The Canes improved to 2-0 atop the Parkway Conference. They are 5-1, and they may be all alone atop the conference, depending on Aliquippa, West Allegheny. West Allegheny came in 1-0, Aliquippa 0-1. Last check, Aliquippa had taken the lead in a game that was tied for most of the contest, 13-7 Quips that game into the fourth quarter. Blackhawk wins their first conference game. They're now 3-4 overall, 51-20 victory over Ambridge. Greater Allegheny Conference final scores: Hampton 35, Indiana 7. The Talbots 1-1 in the conference, 3-4 overall. That loss drops Indiana to 1-1 in the conference, but now Hampton has that head-to-head tiebreaker. Mars big at home over Knock, 56-0. Knights remain winless on the season. Fighting Planet 6-1. They are now 2-0 in the GAC. All right, 3A's Western Hills Conference. Hopewell big over McGuffey, 63-0. Vikings even their conference record at 2-2. They're 5-2 overall. McGuffey remains winless at 0-4, 0-7. Two finals from the Interstate Conference. Southmoreland remains undefeated for the season, 7-0. They're 2-0 in the conference, a 41-0 victory up on Cougar Mountain against York. And Elizabeth Forward, also now 2-0 in the conference, 6-1 overall. Warriors big at home over Derry, 56-7. 3A non-conference, Beaver now 4-3. They beat Deer Lakes 45-7, sixth straight loss for the Lancers. All right, to 2A we go. All three scores are final in the Century Conference, where Washington blanked Keystone Oaks 55-0. Coming into that game, Little Prexies 2-0, Golden Eagles 3-0. So it was a battle for a share of first place, dominated by the hosts. Little Prexies win 55-0 over Keystone Oaks. Seton LaSalle big over Stowe Rocks 53-0, keeping the Rebels perfect in conference play at 4-0. Stowe Rocks remains winless at 0-7. Waynesburg Central over Carleton 36-6. Raiders' first conference victory. They're 1-2. The Cougars fall to 0-3. Final from the Midwestern Athletic Conference, Western Beaver remains undefeated. They knock off Elwood City 27-12. Wolverines 2-2 in the conference. Golden Beavers alone in first place at 4-0. Another final from the MAC, Riverside big over Freedom, 37-7. Riverside improves to 3-1 in the conference, and right now, at least a share of second place behind Western Beaver. Freedom falls to 1-3. Final from the Allegheny Conference. There were two games tonight in the Allegheny Conference. Apollo Ridge stuns Steel Valley 18-14. The Vikings improved to 3-0 in the conference, tied with South Allegheny for first place. They're 5-2 overall. First conference loss for Steel Valley drops them to 2-1, 4-3 for the season. 18-14. Apollo Ridge showing that they are the real deal with the upset win in the Allegheny Conference. Our Lady of the Sacred Heart knocks off South Park 14-13. Chargers now 2-2 in conference play. The Eagles dropped their fourth in a row. They are now 0-3 in the conference. Class A Big 7 Conference. Laurel 63, Summit Academy 8. Shenango over Rochester. It was close, though. 13-12. Eastern Conference in Class A. Clareton 51, Springdale nothing. Concerns the Dynamos wouldn't be able to play. They did, fielded a team. Kudos to them for that. Brentwood knocks off Riverview 27-14. Spartans improved to 2-2 in the conference. That drops the Raiders to 2-2. California, a perfect 4-0 in Class A's Tri-County South. 50-0 they win over Carmichael's. Bentworth 3-1 on their heels. Bearcats shut out West Green 42-0. Class A non-conference, Neshannock 34, Burgettstown 7. City League final, big one here. University Prep 38, Alderdice 6. The Wildcats improve to 4-0 in the City League. Big showdown for the City League championship. The regular season championship is next week. University Prep against Westinghouse. Alderdice falls to 2-2 in the City League. They're done in District 8 play. They will finish in third place and play the loser of Westinghouse University Prep in the City League semifinals in a couple of weeks. And Albert Gallatin, our Trib HSSN Team of the Week for Week 5. They win again in Week 6, 62-27 over Clear Springs, Maryland. The Colonials, a perfect 7-0. More scores coming up, but it's time for our first recap of the night. We bring in Paul Patera, who usually is our first recap of the night, and so many happening. The weather is fine. The football is great. We're into October, but I'm so thrilled. Paul Patera finally got to call a competitive game.
It was a dandy, too. I think maybe it's Lou that's causing all the blowouts, right? No, it was just a great football game here tonight. And I'm the first one to call in because I'm probably the first one to go to bed of the Trib HSSN team. But North Hills Indians in Class 5A Northeast Conference with a 14-13 victory over the Plum Mustangs in a game that went all the way down to the wire. North Hill scored on the first possession of the ball game. They ran a wildcat offense to success tonight, mostly with John L. Edison, about 133 yards rushing tonight. He had a 54-yard run on this drive, setting up the Indians at the 1-yard line of Plum. Couple plays later, it was Israel Armstead going over from the 4, extra point good, 7-0. And North Hill seemed to be dominating some things. All of a sudden, Plum got going in the second quarter. The two-headed monsters in the backfield of C.J. Hart and Elijah Jackson gaining yardage. John Nonnenberg hitting on some passes. And they put 2 touchdown drives together, 2 excellent drives. Elijah Jackson with a 15-yard run, C.J. Hart with a 2-yard run. But after Hart's run, the extra point was blocked. And as you can tell by the final score, that loomed large. The only scoring we had in the second half, Plum had a drive going, as it did for most of the second half. Penalties and mistakes killed the Mustangs in the second half. The ball was fumbled. Joey Lutz, the linebacker, tight end, punter for the Indians, picked it up, scampered 55 yards for a touchdown to give the Indians the 14-13 lead. Couple of interceptions in the second half inside North Hill's territory as Plum was driving. Helped to seal it. It went down to 9 seconds left in the game. North Hills had the punt. Plum put an all-out rush on Joey Lutz, but he got the kickoff. Clock ran out, and the Indians win. And North Hills now goes to 2-1 in the Northeast Conference, and next week takes on the Shaler Titans. Plum Mustangs fall to 0-3. Next week, they play the Foxes of Fox Chapel, and kudos to Mr. Heron Zurakat, the Fox Chapel kicker, on breaking the WPIAL record. And if a kicker's going to Georgia, he must be pretty good. But the final score in this one, North Hills 14, Plum 13, and congratulations to Brooke Price, the homecoming queen at Plum High School.
Oh, you caught me without my bell. There we go.
I have to get my ding, yes.
That's right. You need your ding before you go to bed on a Friday night. Doctor's orders. Paul, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, Don.
All right, you as well. Paul Patera checking in and recapping. Again, he's been on his share of blowouts here this year, and finally one that goes down to the wire. And it's a big win for North Hills, 14-13 over Plum, improving the Indians to 2-1. Don't have a final yet from Pine Richland Peters, but barring an upset there, Penn Hills will also be sitting at 2-1, and North Hill's next opponent, Shaler, is at 1-1. So kind of a log jam behind Pine Richland in that Northeast Conference. All right, let's get you run down the scores again until our next recap. Some final scores that we haven't reported yet. Peters Township in the Allegheny 6 wins at home, but it wasn't easy. 21-10 victory over the Moon Tigers. The Indians now 2-0 in the Allegheny 6, 7-0 overall. Moon falls to 1-1. They are 4-3 on the season. Aliquippa does win in Class 4A's Parkway Conference. 19-7 is the final score. Both the Quips and the West Allegheny Indians are now 1-1 in conference play. Another final going back up to 5A, Upper St. Clair pulls away from South Fayette 50-14. Panthers rebounding after that loss last week, their first of the season to Peters Township. They win big. Both Upper St. Clair and South Fayette now sit at 1-1 in the Allegheny 6 Conference. Big East Conference final score, Armstrong falls to Woodland Hills 50-14. This game was actually close into the late stages of the third quarter, fourth quarter. We're going to get a recap of that game coming up, but Woodland Hills pulls away 50-14. All right, Matt Vandriak is now joining us. He had the call of the matchup in Class A's Eastern Conference between Riverview and Brentwood. Riverview in a situation to make a statement, coming off a big win last week, to improve to 3-1 in conference play. But they don't get it done on the road, lose to Brentwood in a game that could be telling come playoff time, not only is Matt Vandriak joining us, but Kevin Zomansky alongside as well, guys.
We're squeezing in, Don.
We are squeezing in, Don, and it was a huge game for Brentwood. They end a 2-game losing streak and at the same time end Riverview's 2-game winning streak with a 27-14 victory. And Kevin, it was a tale of two halves here. All Brentwood in the first half, Riverview coming back strong in the second.
Yeah, Brentwood's offense was really clicking in the first half as they scored a couple touchdowns on runs by Cedric Davis, who had a big game. We were calling him Abe Lincoln for 4 scores on the game. 1-yard touchdown run, 10-yard touchdown run, 22-yard touchdown run, all in the first half. They took a 20-0 lead at halftime, and then it seemed like the team switched at halftimes, Matt.
Certainly did. Second half, it was Brentwood that watched Riverview battle back. A good second half. It started in the third quarter. Connor Kometz to Rio Stotts, a 33-yard touchdown pass made it 20-7, and then Kometz would connect from 20 yards to Max Kraft. We had ourselves a ball game with 5:17 left in the fourth quarter, 20-14 Riverview. But Brentwood, Kevin, had the ball at the Riverview 45-yard line on 4th and 2. They elected to go for it.
Yeah, they took a timeout to talk about it, and Matt and I were talking that we think they should punt and pin them deep. Instead, they elected to run it to the left side. Davis broke through the line, and he was free and clear once he hit the second level. Nobody touched him. 47-yard scamper to put it out of reach, 27-14. Riverview, Matt, drove all the way down to the goal line. However,
they got stopped on 4th and goal from the half-yard line, and Brentwood's defense made 2 fourth-down stops. They stopped Riverview once inside the 20 in the second quarter, Kevin. That led to that third touchdown run by Davis. Also, we had a fumble on the opening kickoff that was recovered by the Spartans, a 22-yard drive that was capped off by Davis's first touchdown run. So Cedric Davis, the hero of the day, in the words of Metallica, the local hero, in the words of Joe Hendry. 4 touchdowns here on homecoming en route to the 27-14 lead. And, Dawn, there's a jumble of teams, 7 of the 8 teams battling for 3 guaranteed playoff spots. Last year, there was 2 wild cards, so a whole lot going on there. We'll let you talk about the rest of the Eastern Conference stands. But before we go, it was homecoming. Don, what happens when you combine a northern Pittsburgh borough with a southwestern Pennsylvania township?
you get the homecoming queen.
You get Brentwood's homecoming queen, Miss Avalon Peters, the 2025 Brentwood homecoming queen, and a geography lesson for you cats and kids as well.
Wow. That was a long way to go for that, but I thank you very much. Matt Vandriak, Kevin Zomansky, homecoming kings, not so much. But the call tonight for us here on Trib HSSN of a big victory for Brentwood over Riverview. Thank you, guys.
Have a good night, Don.
See you, Don.
All right, you do the same. We go from Matt and Kevin to Bob Orquist, Michael Garr. They made the long trek to Armstrong. I sent them to the wrong game up in that neck of the woods. Should have sent them over to Apollo, where the Apollo Ridge Vikings upset Steel Valley tonight in a dandy. But this game, I said, and back me up perhaps, guys, the Big East Conference battle for first place, and with Woodland Hills winning in all likelihood now the conference championship. But it looks like a blowout, but it was close.
So 13-7.5, and 19-14 after 3 quarters. 31 fourth quarter points for Woodland Hills, makes it a 50-14 final. So it was close throughout with Michael Garr, Bob Orquist. Scoop Smith, a 54-yard catch and run early in the second quarter. Max Zablocki caught a touchdown pass from Jaden Oliver, and then Taylor Reed, a 14-yard run. Missed extra point. Like it was 13-7 at the half. Anyone's ball game at that time.
Anyone's ball game. It was a good back and forth battle. The defenses looked great for both teams. We talked pregame about how high-powered both offenses were, and we were a little surprised. Not disappointed by any stretch, but it was just surprised of how good the defenses looked. But second half comes around, and Woodland Hills really just stepped up.
Scoop Smith catches a 23-yard touchdown pass, but then Kusta Cockness, who got injured in the fourth quarter, scored on a touchdown run. A missed extra point from Woodland Hills made it 19-14 after 3 quarters. And Armstrong, after they missed a field goal, they were in the red zone. Negative plays, good defense by Woodland Hills, a penalty. That'll send it to blowout, 3 for 3 in the fourth quarter. Robinson Ray catches a 10-yard touchdown pass. DJ Juttrell, touchdown run. Taylor Reed, second touchdown from 47, and Elijah McGuire caps it off. And ends up in a 50-14 blowout for Woodland Hills, but it wasn't that way through 3 quarters. Reed goes for 138, 2 touchdowns. Cam Walter throws for 306 and 3 touchdowns and 3 2-point conversions. Scoop Smith, 10 catches, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jaden Oliver throws for 171, and Quinn Olson catches 9 balls for 78 yards. But Armstrong finishes out on the wrong end of this one. Now 3-4, 2-1 in conference play. Woodland Hills has now won 5 of 6. They're 5-2 and 3-0, as Don said, probably on their way to a Big East conference title. Their biggest, probably their toughest game in the last 3 will be next week at Gateway. I'm going to bring Don. I'm going to bring you back in, Don, because when we were together, Woodland Hills, Penn Trafford, a couple weeks ago, we brought in Ty Polk, right, to jump on the Scoop Smith bandwagon. This guy is now on the Scoop Smith bandwagon. First time he's seen Scoop in action.
Yeah, first time. Yeah, there you go. First time I'd seen him, and man, I was doing the research and seeing his stats on paper and everything, and I was excited to come to this game tonight, and he did not disappoint. I mentioned it a couple times to Bob. To me, he reminds me of Barry Sanders. He's got the patience and everything, but the jukes and kind of the, oh man, he's going to get tackled. Here are 4 guys around him. Oh, he didn't get tackled. He just broke out for 20 yards. He did that multiple times tonight. I mean, he was just so fun to watch. And we talked about it pregame too. He's an X factor on special teams. We really didn't see him do all that much on special teams. They did a good job to keep it away from him, but the passing game, the running game, he was electric. And ring the bell. I'm a huge fan after seeing him just once.
Don, he's over 200 yards receiving. He had a 54-yard catch and run, but the 23-yarder will take down. He's got 13 touchdowns now. The 50-plus average might come down a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think he's too upset by that.
There's a reason why at college, it's all about the measurables, that someone his size is still getting all those looks. It shows you how special his athletic talents are. Special young man as well. He's got a really good head on his shoulders.
Yeah, you had a chance to talk to him a couple of weeks ago as the player of the week.
What a joy. What a joy. Guys, be safe. Long trek home, so be careful.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don.
Bob Orquist, Michael Garr, a little tag team action as Woodland Hills pulls away. Yeah, that was, I think at one point, Armstrong was trying to kick a field goal to pull it within 3 in the third quarter. But big fourth quarter blows the Riverhawks out of the water and probably blows up their hopes of a Big East Conference championship. If Woodland Hills loses and Armstrong can finish out, they would technically be co-champs, but again, Woodland Hills gets the tiebreaker. Another recap coming up here in a moment. Just want to give some updated scores, some interesting scores. Class A, Jeanette in the Eastern Conference beats Greensburg Central Catholic 37-22. Franklin Regional, first-time victory on the season. They win tonight in a non-conference game in 5A, 21-10. Over Fox Chapel, and I want to get this right, deserving of some love. He'll be getting a lot of it. The senior kicker for the Fox Chapel Foxes, Haran Zurikat, a WPIAL record 57-yard field goal at the time gave the Foxes a 10-0 lead, but Franklin Regional comes back and wins that game 21-10. Trinity stuns Thomas Jefferson 33-22. So the defending champs fall to 1-1 in the conference. Trinity now 2-0. They will play for first place next week against Chartiers Valley. The Colts win in dramatic fashion over Bell Vernon 36-35. We'll get a recap of that a little bit later on in the show, as the Colts scored late, went for 2, and got it to pull out the 36-35 victory over Bell Vernon. A couple other finals before we recap the Aliquippa victory. Pine Richland 63, Penn Hills 19. Rams are running away and hiding with the Northeast Conference Championship. Penn Hills drops to 2-1, the same record as North Hills in the battle for second place in the NEC. McKeesport wasn't easy, but they win over West Mifflin 28-21 in a 4A Greater Allegheny Conference matchup. Tigers, along with Mars, now 2-0 atop the conference. Those two teams meet next week at George Smith Field, Weigel Schaefer Stadium in McKeesport. By the time you get that name out, the show's over. 6A showdown in Westmoreland County, Norwin 33, Hempfield 26. The Knights now 2-1 in 6A. They're 5-2 overall. Hempfield falls to 1-3 and 4-3. Norwin gets a chance to go for the 6A title next week when they travel to take on Central Catholic. Won't be easy, but big win for the Knights. Really looking good as far as a playoff berth is concerned. And in Class A, Avella continues to shine. They're 6-1 on the season, 3-1 in the Tri-County South. Avella 48, Mapletown 12. Let's bring in Greg A. Smith. He, along with Kyle Dawson, had the call. A good one tonight in Imperial, where West Allegheny falls to Aliquippa, leaving both teams even at 1-1 in the Parkway. Greg?
Hey, good evening, Don. Yeah, good one out here at West A. My partner Kyle will be joining you for the round table later here in a short while. But yeah, to recap here tonight, the Quips able to even that Parkway Conference record at 1-1, as you mentioned. Aliquippa actually started kicking the ball off, but they soon got the ball back as they recovered the opening kick at the West A 39. And just 5 plays later, it was a 17-yard pass from Marcus Council to Khalil Good 10 minutes ago in the first quarter. Aliquippa strikes fast just in the first 2 minutes to go up 7-0. A couple of traded 3-and-outs. West A responds quick, though, back at 4:57 in the first quarter. Just a 2-play, 47-yard drive. It was Brody Cornell, a 41-yard touchdown run that got the Indians back even with the Quips. Looked like we might have a shootout here tonight, but that's when the offense, for the most part, stopped for about 2 quarters. Both teams traded a few opportunities. In the second quarter, West A actually converted a fake punt, put a 7-play drive together, but ultimately did punt on that drive. Aliquippa would get the ball back, go 11 plays, get into their near midfield, but ultimately West A would then block their punt. West A would get the ball right before the first half was over, but an Anthony Ingram interception for for Aliquippa would stop that drive and send it to the half tied at 7. Aliquippa would get the ball first. They would punt after a 3-and-out. West A put together a long drive, but ultimately 3 holding calls for a total of 29 yards would stymie that drive. West A would try a 50-yard field goal with 3:09 to go in the third quarter. That would fall short, and the score would remain tied at 7. Aliquippa, though, on the next drive would put together their own drive that would end in a touchdown. The big play on that drive, a third down, 45-yard pass to Khalil Good, tack on to a 15-yard personal foul call after that. And ultimately on a 4th down, the first play of the fourth quarter, it was J.J. Work from 9 yards out. Extra point, no good, but Aliquippa would extend the lead to 13-7. West A would really was unable to put any sort of offense together from then, had a couple more opportunities, but ultimately Aliquippa would get the ball back. They would go, they would start at their own 34-yard line. And about 9 plays later, it was actually another 4th down conversion, this time a pass to who else but Khalil Good from 13 yards out with 2:03 remaining in the game. That would ice it. 2-point conversion, no good. But Aliquippa would go on to win 19-7. Khalil Good, 2 touchdown receptions and 2 interceptions on the game. So he was really the standout player. Marcus Council, 10 of 15, 144, and 2 touchdowns. It wasn't pretty for Aliquippa at times, but this defense is the real deal. They've shown that all season, even in their losses. Their defense has been outstanding, and tonight they really flexed their muscles, especially in the second half. They looked to be a second-half team more often than not, and it showed again here tonight. West A just could not get anything going in the passing game, and Aliquippa ultimately just wins up front and able, as you mentioned, to even their Parkway Conference record to 1-1. The Indians also even up at 1-1 after the win against Ambridge last week. But the Quips, I think 2 weeks from now, or at least a week from now, we'll look ahead to a showdown against Montour. It looks like Newcastle has really floated to the top there in the Parkway with their win here tonight. But a good win for the Quips, 19-7 from West Allegheny High School.
Good stuff, Gregory. Now, Newcastle, they host West Allegheny, 3 straight home games against Aliquippa, Montour, West Allegheny. They win next week, barring a catastrophic loss in the last couple of weeks. Yep. The Canes are on their way to a Parkway Conference Championship led by a freshman quarterback. Great story indeed. Thank you, Gregory. Have a good weekend, pal.
You too. Thanks, Don.
All right, Greg A. Smith. Don't ever get confused. Kind enough to join us. We're going to run down all the scores. We still have some recaps coming up, but let us pause right now, 10 seconds or so, for station identification on the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
You're watching the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
I said or so. Back at World Headquarters, let's run down the final scores, and most of the games have gone final. In Class 6A tonight, big win for the Norwin Knights, 33-26 over Hempfield, improving Norwin to 2-1 in Class 6A. That's the same record for the Canon McMillan Big Macs. Wasn't easy, but they hold on to defeat Seneca Valley tonight, 33-29. The Big Macs are 2-1 in 6A play. Raiders of Seneca Valley fall to 0-3. By the way, Hempfield is now 1-3 after that loss. 5A Allegheny 6 Conference. Peters Township 21, Moon 10. The Indians remain undefeated. Upper St. Clair bounces back after losing to Peters Township last week. 50-14 victory over the South Fayette Lions. And Bethel Park 75, Baldwin 14. Final just in from 6A before we continue on in 5A. North Allegheny, this wasn't easy either, but they win 28-19 over Mount Lebanon. The Blue Devils fall to 1-3, same record as Hempfield in Class 6A. So right now you have Central Catholic in first place at 3-0, just in 6A. Then you have Norwin and Canon-Mac at 2-1, and Hempfield, Mount Lebanon 1-3, and Seneca Valley 0-3. Top 4 teams make it into the playoffs. All right, 5A, Big East Conference. Woodland Hills pulls away 31 points in the final quarter to win at Armstrong 50-14. Kiski area 34, Latrobe 14. The Cavaliers are now 2-2 in the Big East. Northeast Conference, Pine Richland 63, Penn Hills 19. North Hills edges Plum 14-13. Both North Hills and Penn Hills tied for second with 2-1 records. Haran Zurikat, a 57-yard field goal. It is a WPIAL record. Gave Fox Chapel a 10-0 lead, but the Foxes couldn't hold it. Franklin Regional comes back in a 5A non-conference game and wins 21-10. First victory of the season for Franklin Regional. Fox Chapel falls to 2-5. Congratulations to the Georgia recruit, Haran Zurikat. 4A Big 6 Conference. Trinity stuns Thomas Jefferson 33-22, knocking the Jaguars out of the top spot in the rankings, I would assume, and also out of first place in the Big 6. Up next for Trinity, 2-0 Chartiers Valley. They win a thriller over Bell Vernon, 36-35. A recap of that is coming up. Ringgold 47, Laurel Highland 7. Parkway Conference, Newcastle alone in first place at 2-0. They win over Montour 34-14. Aliquippa 19, West Allegheny 7. Both teams now 1-1 in the Parkway. Blackhawk also 1-1. They beat Ambridge 51-20. Greater Allegheny Conference, McKeesport improves to 2-0 with a 28-21 win over West Mifflin. Mars is 2-0, 56-0 over Knock. Next week, Mars at McKeesport. Hampton over Indiana 35-7. 3A Western Hills Conference. Hopewell 63, McGuffey, nothing. Allegheny 7 Conference, Imani Christian remains undefeated, 61-0 over East Allegheny. Final just in from the Allegheny 7 Conference in overtime. Highlands upsets Freeport 28-27, they're handing the Yellow Jackets their first conference loss. They are now 3-1, 6-1. Highlands improves to 3-1. They are 4-3. So now Imani Christian alone in first place in the Allegheny 7 Conference. Interstate Conference, Southmoreland remains undefeated, 41-0. They win at York. Right with them in the conference standings is Elizabeth Forward, 56-7. The Warriors win at home over Derry. And Mount Pleasant also 2-0. Vikings 42. Greensburg-Salem 29. 3A non-conference, Beaver 45. Deer Lake 7. 2A's Midwestern Athletic Conference, Western Beaver remains undefeated, 27-12 winners at Elwood City. Riverside improves to 3-1 in conference play with a 37-7 win over Freedom. Century Conference, Washington now 3-0. They blow out Keystone Oaks 55-0, first conference loss for the Golden Eagles. Seton LaSalle 4-0. They win at Stowe Rocks 53-0. And Waynesburg Central 36, Carleton 6. If you're wondering, Wash High, Seton LaSalle, that is a week 9 showdown. So still waiting a few weeks for the game that will likely decide the century, thus making it the game of the century. Allegheny Conference, Apollo Ridge upsets Steel Valley 18-14. The Vikings are now tied with South Allegheny for first place at 3-0. Steel Valley falls to 2-1. Our Lady of the Sacred Heart hands South Park their 4th straight loss. Chargers win 14-13 over the defending champion Eagles. Class A, Black Hills Conference, Fort Cherry remains undefeated, 56-20 over Cornell. Chartiers Houston 31. Monessen 18. Big 7 Conference, Southside 63, Northgate 13. Laurel 63, Summit Academy 8. And Shenango edges Rochester 13-12, keeping the Rams winless on the season. Eastern Conference, Clareton 51, Springdale nothing. Leechburg 48, Fraser 14. Big showdown for the Eastern Conference top spot next week when Leechburg visits Clareton. Jeanette 37-22 over Greensburg Central Catholic. Brentwood upends Riverview 27-14. Tri-County South, California 50, Carmichael's nothing. Avella 48-12 over Mapletown. Bentworth 42, West Green nothing. Non-conference Class A, Neshannock 34, Burgettstown 7. City League, University Prep 38, Alderdice 6. Next week, University Prep against Westinghouse for the District 8 regular season championship. Alderdice will finish in 3rd place in the City League and play the loser of that University Prep Westinghouse game in the semifinals in a couple of weeks. Speaking of Westinghouse, they lose for the first time this season up in Karnes City against District 9, the District 9 Gremlins, 28-24. Karnes City defeats Westinghouse. And Albert Gallatin, 7-0. The Colonials win at Clear Springs, Maryland, 62-27, celebrating on the bus and listening to this here scoreboard show. Kudos to them. Our WPIAL Team of the Week last week. Great story. Check it out if you haven't had a chance yet. Okay, a couple more finals. Burrell beats Valley 41-21. Central Valley over North Catholic 34-8. Central Valley was up big in this game. North Catholic furious comeback, but it falls short. Warriors over the Trojans by 6. All right, we got all kind of recaps coming up. We're going to start with one of the best games of the night. Sean Saputo had the call on the network of the battle in Class 4A between Chartiers Valley and Bell Vernon. Everybody wants to know, are these Colts for real, Sean Saputo?
Well, they showed tonight that they have a lot of guts because it was a hard-fought win for the Colts tonight. First score of the game came at 9:35 of the first quarter as Bell Vernon drove down to the field, got to the 4-yard line. As the pile kept pushing, Mike Lawrence rips out the football for a 96-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown to put the Colts up 7-0, a score that held until the 3:21 mark of the second quarter when Chase Petrosky, and you'll hear that name a lot, had a 3-yard touchdown run, tied the game at 7. In the final 30 seconds, a lot happening. Julius Best, a 45-yard touchdown reception from Luke Miranda, gave Chartiers Valley the lead 14-7 with 30 seconds to go. But on the ensuing drive, a 65-yard Petrosky run set up a Curtis Wade 3-yard touchdown run with just 8 seconds to go, and we stood even at the half. Out of the break, Bell Vernon comes out and takes its first lead of the night, 21-14 on Petrosky's second touchdown run of the night from 30 yards out. But then a 14-point swing went Chartiers Valley's way, tying the game on a Jake Zarnecki 33-yard touchdown reception at 4:54 of the third quarter. And then the lead back to the Colts on a Damian Holloway 44-yard touchdown reception at 11:19 of the fourth quarter. First play from scrimmage, Bell Vernon started a 14-point swing their way. And it was at 10:55 of the fourth. Petrosky from 71 yards out tied the game at 28. And then with 4:30 to go in the fourth quarter, Petrosky scores his fourth touchdown of the night from 17 yards out to put Bell Vernon ahead 35-28. Chartiers Valley on the final drive of the game for the Colts gets all the way down to the 1-yard line. They let the clock wind all the way down, have a bad snap that goes over the head of the Wildcat quarterback, Mike Lawrence. They drop back to the 12-yard line, and for the fourth time of the night, Miranda throws a touchdown pass, this time to Owen Weecraft from 12 yards out, and Chartiers Valley was not content with the tie. They go for 2. They run a toss play, and it's Tayshawn Lewis taking it in for the 2-point conversion to seal the 36-35 victory for the Chartiers Valley Colts. Miranda was great in the air for the Colts tonight, 14 of 26 for 222 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Lewis, the leading rusher for the Colts, 20 carries, 78 yards, and what would be the game-winning 2-point conversion. Julius Best, the wide receiver, 4 catches for 105 yards and 1 touchdown. Char Valley ends up with 317 yards of offense on the night. On the flip side for Bell Vernon, Chase Petrosky put on an absolute show in a losing effort for Bell Vernon. 29 carries for 339 yards and 4 touchdowns for the Bell Vernon running back. He was followed by Wade, who had 8 carries for 68 yards and a rushing touchdown. He also threw for 76 yards on 7 of 12 passing, 483 total yards for Bell Vernon. The Leopards, however, they fall to 1-5 and 0-2 in the Big Six. They have a chance to bounce back next week as they travel to Laurel Highlands. On the flip side, Chartiers Valley clinches just its 6th winning season in the last 20 years, improving to 6-1 and 2-0 in the Big Six Conference. And they have a big-time showdown now after the upset of Thomas Jefferson by Trinity. They head to the Hill in Washington County next week to take on the Hillers in a matchup that could be for first place overall.
It will be for first place in the Big Six because no one else has 2 wins at this point in that 4A conference. Sean, thank you very much.
Yes. Oh, homecoming night, by the way,
go ahead.
Here at Char Valley, and a unique one. We have twins as the homecoming king and queen. Leighton Fox and Delaney Fox at Chartiers Valley, your homecoming king and queen. Leighton, the drum major of the band, and Delaney, the captain of the nationally ranked dance team.
2 for the twins. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Don. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thriller at Char Valley. Colts, the real deal. Another test. It's a pretty good Trinity team they'll be playing. Don't be deceived by the record. What are they, 3-4? Yeah, 33-22 winners over Thomas Jefferson tonight. All right, Alex Lyons joins us now. He had the call of an impressive performance by Elizabeth Forward Interstate Conference. Eventually, we'll get to EF Southmoreland as the big game in this conference, but that's a pretty good dairy team that EF took care of tonight.
Yeah, Don, EF, real deal. And after Derry gave Southmoreland a game last week, it's like, okay, maybe the Trojans have something here for the Warriors, but it was all EF from the start. And 52-yard opening drive, 4 minutes, 23 seconds. Ryan Messina would call his own number from 4 yards out, 7-0 EF. Force a 3 and out on the ensuing drive, and then Ryan Messina would find his favorite target tonight twice on this drive. It was Collar from 24 yards out, then from 15 yards out for the touchdown, a 44-second drive. And that was really the theme. Quick scoring drives for the Warriors in this opening half made it 14-0. Ensuing drive, first play, put it on the deck for Doherty, and Travis Ducey would recover. Warriors would then go 34 yards in 45 seconds, and it was Landon Honick on the jet sweep with his first touchdown of the night, making it 21-0. Warriors would force a turnover on downs defensively. Geo Thompson with the 4th down sack, and that would lead to his twin brothers Rocco's first touchdown of the night from 6 yards out, making it 28-0. Warriors would add 2 more in this opening half. Ryan Messina, a 20-yard pass to Collar for his second touchdown of the night. Just 2 drives in the opening half and 2 drives in the game. The Warriors did not get points. It was a 69-yard touchdown called back on a hold, and then a personal foul that would prevent the Warriors from scoring to increase the lead, and then a blocked field goal by Derry of a 44-yard variety. But EF would get on the board one final time in that opening half. It was Rocco Thompson from 4 yards out, capping off a 78-yard drive to end the opening half. Derry only had 3 first downs in the opening half, and the Warriors picked up where they left off after a 3 and out to start half number 2. Messina would work his way down the field. He'd find Collar for 23, and then a 20-yard run would eventually lead to his 4-yard touchdown pass to Anthony St. Angelo, making it 49-0. Derry would get on the board, though, so no shutout in Elizabeth tonight. A 4th and 2 conversion. Sacco would find Carson Wares for a 34-yard pitch and catch on 4th and 2, and then a 2-yard rushing touchdown by Anthony Sacco would break the shutout. But a late-time touchdown by the sophomore Makanja would get the Warriors up to 56. They looked dominant once again. And after a closely contested game between Derry and Southmoreland, you wonder, do the Warriors just run away until playoff time this year, as they are the real deal right now in 3A, joining the ranks with, of course, Amani Christian and top dog Avonworth.
Yeah, that's one of the better programs in 3A, period. They've been there, I mean, every year, going back to the Michelotti days, they have made themselves a force in the district, and they were a force tonight, rolling past Derry. Alex Lyons, have a good weekend.
You too, Don.
All right, let's talk some 6A football now. And to be honest, I have been critical of 6A. I mean, I'm not a fan of the whole expansion, but it is what it is, and it's not going away. It's become too predictable, and the playoffs are all rematches. But this week, at least this week, there were some very competitive games. NA wins by 9 over Mount Lebanon. Norwin wins by 7 over Hempfield. And as we bring in Mitch Montani, he had the call. Cannon McMillan wins by 4 over Seneca Valley, 33-29. So we're seeing competitive football in Class 6A. Central Catholic probably a notch above, and then there's NA, and the battle for 3 and 4 is going to be good, and it's going to go the distance, which is good. Anytime there's a lot of teams involved in a chase, that's a good thing. Big win for the Big Macs.
Absolutely, Don, and they needed this one tonight, and they got it. Hard-fought victory, very back-and-forth game. I'll get to that in a minute. 33-29 the final. Cannon Mac takes down Seneca Valley. Seneca Valley got on the board first, a 27-yard touchdown pass from Andrew Lobig, the quarterback, to Danny Drennan. Lobig had an absolutely awesome night, 3 touchdowns. That was the first of it, and it was 7-0 Seneca Valley midway through the first. Cannon Mac got on the board with a 1-yard touchdown run by TJ Sabatucci, the big tight end, took the snap out of the Wildcat and scored. Cannon Mac went for 2. They did not get it, so the Big Macs trailed 7-6. A 22-yard Reese Mentz field goal to start the second quarter gave the Big Macs a 9-7 lead. Then Jansma, the quarterback for Cannon Mac, found Ethan Campoli from 15 yards out on a pass with the extra point. It was then 16-7 Cannon Mac. Another Mentz field goal, this time from 41 yards halfway through the second quarter, gave the Big Macs a 19-7 lead. That's a lead they'd have at halftime. But then Seneca Valley heated up to start half number 2. Andrew Lobig, the quarterback for Seneca Valley, defensively had an interception to start half number 2. And then Caden Parker of the Raiders scored from 3 yards out. The big running back made it 19-14. After a Cannon Mac punt, Lobig threw his second touchdown of the night, this time to Adam Gem. Seneca Valley went for 2. They'd get it and went up 22-19. They'd add on to that after another Cannon Mac punt, another Lobig touchdown pass, this time to Parker from 14 yards out. 29-19 at that point in favor of the Raiders. But Cannon Mac rallied down the stretch with 2 touchdowns late, a 5-yard touchdown run by Sabatucci, 2 Wildcat touchdowns for him tonight. That made it a 3-point game. And then a 46-yard touchdown run by Braylon Wingfield ends up being the winner, giving Cannon Mac a 33-29 lead with 4:20 to go. Seneca Valley went deep down the field, but turned the ball over on downs, deep in Cannon Mac territory, with 40 seconds left to end the game. So Cannon Mac holds on for a tight win here tonight, Dawn, 33-29. And the way things are shuffling in Class 6A, this ends up being a big win for the Big Macs to move to 2-1. And even though I don't think they're statistically eliminated, a devastating loss tonight for Seneca Valley as they fall to 0-3 and still have the 2 big teams, Central Catholic and North Allegheny, down the stretch.
Yeah, agree about the Raiders. 3 wins will likely get you a top 4 spot. 2 wins, you're going to be better have the tiebreakers. Central or Cannon Mac looks for victory number 3 next week. It won't be easy as they go to Newman Stadium to take on North Allegheny. Mitch, thank you, sir.
Absolutely, Don. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, going back to my disc jockey days back in college, what a perfect segue as we call in Randy Gore, the voice of the North Allegheny Tigers. He'll have the call of that Cannon Mac NA game on the network next week. Had the call tonight, a game that maybe a lot of folks probably a little surprised was as close as it was. 28-19, North Allegheny wins and sticks in second place.
Yeah, and to your point from earlier on, Class 6A scores tonight, very interesting, especially if you were following along throughout the evening. Well, to dig into this one tonight, North Allegheny certainly on paper coming in as the heavy favorite, and it started out pretty well for the Tigers. An 81-yard kickoff return on the opening kickoff by Corey Pitts. So the Tigers just 14 seconds into the game on the board. 2-point conversion past Brady Brinkley to Cam Kushner. The Tigers led 8-0. North Allegheny moving the ball very well throughout the night, but punching it into the end zone at times was difficult. Tigers late in the first quarter had a 1st and goal from the 5, ended up punting on a 4th and goal from the 38, something I don't think I've ever seen before, but that was the scenario there. Tigers early in the second quarter had a 1st and goal, but had to settle for a field goal attempt, and a 20-yard field goal by Ethan Maravich made it 11-0 Tigers with 7:42 to play in the second quarter. Tigers try a surprise onside kick, which did not go the necessary 10 yards. Mount Lebanon had the football at the NA 40-yard line. In one play, it was a deep ball touchdown pass. Patrick Smith, the University of Penn commit, hit receiver Jackson Driscoll in stride for a touchdown, and the Blue Devils, just like that, trailing by 11-7 with 7:35 to go before intermission. North Allegheny would get on the board one more time before halftime. Another field goal by Ethan Maravich, this time from 36 yards out, and it made it a 7-point lead at the half, 14-7, North Allegheny. Blue Devils had the football first to start the second half, and a very impressive drive as the Blue Devils in 4 plays traveled 45 yards, and it was Patrick Smith with a physical 22-yard touchdown run that cut the NA lead to 1 point at 14-13. The extra point was no good. Tigers remained in the lead, but just by 1 at 14-13 at that point. Tigers' ensuing possession took them just 2 plays to answer. A 65-yard touchdown pass, Brady Brinkley to Corey Pitts, who had the big receiving night. He had 104 yards receiving, and, of course, that opening kickoff return touchdown. But that touchdown pass to Corey Pitts there made it 21-13 NA with 8:48 on the clock in the third period. Tigers really getting the running game going in the second half, and that was a big difference. Luke Rohan, who did not have a carry in the first half, he carried the ball 19 times for 132 yards in the second half. He had a 1-yard touchdown run late in the third quarter that upped the NA lead to 28-13. That was with 1:47 on the clock. Early in the fourth, looked like the Tigers might take a stranglehold of the game with another good possession, deep drive, but a pass into the end zone was tipped by linebacker Sam McCauley and intercepted by Jacob Zaber in the end zone, and he weaved his way 103 yards for a pick six touchdown, and the Blue Devils at that point were down 28-19. They went for 2 to try and make it a 7-point ball game, but the 2-point conversion failed on a bad snap, and the Tigers led still by 2 possessions with a 9-point lead, 28-19, and North Allegheny just running out the clock the rest of the way to prevail by that same 28-19 score. So the Tigers improved to 6-1 overall, and now 3-1 in the Quad County Conference. And for Mount Lebanon, they are the opposite, 1-6 overall and 1-3 in conference play. North Allegheny, as you mentioned, will be at home next week against Cannon McMillan. That'll actually be the Tigers' final home game of the regular season. Mount Lebanon will be back at home against Penn Hills in a non-conference game. But this one tonight, tip of the cap to Mount Lebanon. They were game tonight, and they are beset by injuries. They are not a fully healthy program right now. A couple of Division I guys that were out of the lineup, but they certainly, again, tip of the cap to them. They made some big plays, some splash plays at times, but in the end, North Allegheny able to grind out the win.
They'll have a chance in weeks 8 and 9. They finish against the 2 Westmoreland County teams that will likely be very meaningful games if the Blue Devils are to return to the postseason. Glad you're not out in the stands picking up cups, Randy.
They let me inside tonight. It was nice.
Yeah. Uncle Bob, what a sweetheart he is, let me tell you.
Oh, one more piece of business. I almost forgot. In honor of Dow Carnahan, it was homecoming tonight. The homecoming king, Andrew Pay, and the homecoming queen, Mallory Kim.
The late, great Dow Carnahan. There's probably a lot of people that tune in every year. It's a tradition that we have taken on and wonder, what are they doing? What, is he losing it a little bit? And that might be true. But, we started it. He would always give us the homecoming king and queen, and then it's kind of caught on, and now everybody does. And we the bell tolls for the king and queen. Randall, you're a king in my eyes.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Well, let me turn it over back to royalty, Mr. Don Rebel. Thank you, and have a good weekend, sir.
I am the court gesture. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Not hardly.
Randy Gore with the call. North Allegheny 28, Mount Lebanon 19. Great to see great close games in Class 6A. Let's go to 5A, our final recap of the night. Bring in James Dotson. Great anticipation after Newcastle took care of business against Aliquippa. Remember last year, similar, James, Newcastle got off to a great start. Everybody's kind of oohing and on. And then once Parkway Conference play began, it was all downhill. But that does not appear to be the case for this 2025 unit.
It does not, Don, whatsoever. And on the night that they induct the first Sports Hall of Fame class in the over 100-year history of Newcastle sports, it's a freshman and potentially, the way he played tonight, a future potential Hall of Famer that steals the show. 34-14, Newcastle defeats Montour, and it's all about Marino Graham. He accounts for all 5 touchdowns in the game, 4 on the ground and 1 through the air, as Newcastle makes it now 2-0 in conference play. But it was a freshman on the other side of the football who got things going. A slow start offensively for both teams but then Brandon Bennett able to find a jump ball to the freshman Archie Collins for a 28-yard touchdown. Montour with the early lead, 7-0, late in the first quarter. The ensuing drive, Newcastle able to drive right down the field, and on a third down, Marino Graham calls his own number, shakes off a couple of tackles, and gets inside the pylon. 2-point conversion pass is good. Newcastle leads 8-7, and they would not trail the rest of the game. After a 3-and-out, they go on a long drive again, this time an 11-play, 81-yard drive. Marino Graham again from 14 yards out, calling his own number, making a score 14-7. Montour, they're driving down the field. They're getting to about midfield, a third down play, an interception, the first of 3 interceptions for Newcastle defensively. And just 2 plays later, Marino Graham again scampers in, this time from 3 yards out. It was 14-7 at the half, 22-7. That was late in the third quarter. Newcastle again gets the ball back after a turnover, but they face a 3rd down and 25 on the first play of the fourth quarter, and it's lightning in a bottle explosion down the near sideline from 75 yards out for Marino Graham. His 4th rushing touchdown of the game made it 28-7. Montour didn't go away. They returned the ensuing kickoff for a touchdown. It was Collins again from 85 yards out, but then Newcastle methodical, put the icing on the cake with this time through the air on a 3rd down, actually a 4th down pass, to Chase Lemon in the back of the end zone to make your final score 34-14. Flashy numbers for sure for the Newcastle offense, especially with Marino Graham. 169 yards passing. He finished officially with 87 yards rushing, Don, but he was well over 100 before a couple of late plays of a bad snap and a sack, putting him back underneath the century mark. It was the defense, though, honestly, for Newcastle. They came into the game averaging just 7 points allowed per contest, the best in Class 4A. And again, the defense allowed just 7 points tonight. They actually held Montour to negative rushing yards in the first half. Finishing the game with just 49 yards rushing was Halagio, the star running back for Montour. But Caden got most of that in the second half. And in fact, other than him, all 4 other ball carriers for Montour finished with negative rushing yards themselves. So Newcastle is alone atop the Parkway Conference standings at 2-0. Montour at 1-1 now. And I don't want to say one final big one, but 2 big hurdles already out of the way for Newcastle, taking care of business at home. They get West Allegheny at home next week as well, with a chance to, like you said, put the exclamation point. They were 5-0 going into conference play last year. They ran into the buzzsaw. It's a completely different mindset in this second year. A lot of players back, a lot of fresh faces, but this team feels like they are gelling, and especially on the defensive side, I think that's what's even more telling, Don, is how well they have played defensively, and it sure showed here tonight. 3 turnovers and holding Montour to 160 yards of offense.
Control your own destiny, West Allegheny, and then Blackhawk Ambridge to close things out. And you win all 3, and you are the outright Parkway Conference champions. Remember last year we had all that craziness in week 8 and week 9, and we ended up with tri-champions. So Newcastle controls their own destiny. James, thank you very much.
Thank you to, yes, it is royalty, but it is Sir Don Rebel. Thank you very much, Mr. Gore.
Thank you, James. James Dotson, Newcastle, a winner, an impressive winner over Montour to take control of the 4A Parkway Conference. Just want to give you a couple scores, then we'll take a break and welcome in royalty as well. Kyle Dawson joining on the round table. 2A final, New Brighton beats Mohawk. Wild one, 38-35. Non-conference, Ligonier Valley wins their first. Huzzah. 67-13 over Charleroi. Class A, Jefferson Morgan remains undefeated. 37-19 over Beth Center. And a couple of independent scores. Butler, a winner over University High of West Virginia, 35-27. And Du Bois from District 9 defeats Collinsville 38-24. When we return, the Week 6 edition of the Round Table with the voice of the Washington Wild Things, Kyle Dawson. That's coming up when the WPIAL Scoreboard Show continues on the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
This is Miles. He needs PT, Jess needs training, and Max needs both. And while they're all athletic, at AHN Sports Medicine, we know they each need a little something different to hit their goals. Our doctors and specialists pinpoint that difference and make a personalized plan to improve Miles's backswing and Max's throwing arm and Jess's form. Because at AHN Sports Medicine, we see you.
The Rebel Yell podcast with Don Rebel happens 4 times a week. Visit with some of the WPIAL's best players in the Player of the Week podcast. Some of the district's top coaches are featured in the Team of the Week podcast. A weekly preview podcast looks at some of the best matchups in the WPIAL. And finally, a Friday night recap podcast with scores and statistical highlights. Find the Rebel Yell podcast on hssn.triblive.com.
And now on Spotify.
Do you need custom printed materials for your school or organization? Hosting a fundraiser or special event? PrintSource can help. Visit printpittsburgh.com for a free quote on yard signs or banners, flyers and stickers, invitations, program books and tickets, even yearbooks. We are your single source solution for printed materials, signage, and so much more. Visit us online at printpittsburgh.com. PrintSource. Design, print, deliver.
Hi, I'm Adam Goodnack, and I'm a student in Seton Hill University's Wukich School of Nursing. I did my clinical rounds throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and it strengthened my belief in the path that I chose. I could really feel that I was making an impact. The faculty in my coursework at Seton Hill has prepared me to dive right into my field. I've received personalized support and expert guidance. I'm moving forward as a nurse of tomorrow at Seton Hill University.
You're watching the Trib Live High School Sports Network.
October football begins with a bang. A lot of good games. Yeah, we, as per usual, our fair share of blowouts, but I think that most of the expected good games turned out to be good, and that's all you can ask for. Let's bring in Kyle Dawson. Time for the round table here on Trib HSSN. There he is. Look at that.
I'm here.
First time in the season. Kyle, welcome.
Hello. I'm excited. I didn't
Hello.
figure I'd get out of the parking lot, so I'm just kind of chilling here and see how it goes, I guess.
Where are you?
I'm in West A's press box still.
Oh.
I got permission from the mayor of West A, so I'm
that's right. Yes. The voice.
Yes.
Right? Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
Shannon, yeah, he does a great job. But I said they're gonna yell at me if I sit here. He said, "Yeah, just tell them I told you it's okay." Oh, all right.
Oh, well,
I'm
geez.
in.
Man, tickets to the Palace. That's nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's get going here. What do you think? Where should we start?
You know, I was starting to jot down some notes, and I haven't had a chance to write anything for 1A. So let's just start there.
Oh, we'll start in 1A.
We'll
That's
we'll
right.
just go off the cuff a little bit.
Our first time working our way up because everyone else has started.
Everyone says 6 down. Well, that's no fun. I got to be
Yeah.
trendsetter.
All right. We'll go in the Black Hills Conference, where Fort Cherry tonight remains undefeated. They beat Cornell 56-20. They got their big showdown next week with Bishop Canavan. I believe that game is in McDonald next week. Chartiers Houston 31-18 over Monessen. It's going to come down to that game next week, Rangers and Crusaders.
Yeah, and I think everyone expected that to happen. We'll talk about Clairton in a few minutes, but I think it's still Fort Cherry and Clairton in 1A. That game being at home on the new turf for Fort Cherry is a nice little added bonus next week, and obviously, Matt Sigg, Ryan Huey, those guys, Eli Salvini, I know scored at least one touchdown today, and that big win against Cornell. So excited to see what happens in that one, but not surprised to see Fort Cherry where they are, and even Bishop Canavan where they are, and playing really for a conference championship next week.
3-team chase in the Big 7 Conference, 2 of them with conference victories tonight. Southside, big over Northgate, 63-13. Rams are 3-0. Laurel 63, Summit Academy 8, snapping the Knights' one-game win streak. The Spartans are 2-0, and Neshannock had a non-conference victory over Burgettstown, 34-7. They are 2-0 in the conference. The other conference game, Shenango 13, Rochester 12.
Yeah, so Southside and Neshannock will play next week, so something I'll have to give there with 2 unbeaten teams, but Laurel gets a quick, I don't want to call it a break, but they get Shenango next week, and then they've got the 2 big ones. So a rather top-heavy conference, but still a lot, obviously, to be determined at the top of that conference with what's to happen in the next 3 weeks.
Eastern Conference, the team that Kyle alluded to, Clairton, wins as expected over Springdale. I'm just kind of want to give it kudos to the Dynamos just for being able to field a team. They have struggled roster size and with injuries. They lose at Clairton 51-0. Leechburg 48, Fraser 14, Jeanette 37-22 over Greensburg Central Catholic, and Brentwood over Riverview 27-14. That result leaves both those teams at 2-2 in the conference. Big showdown for first place next week at Tyler Boyd Stadium. Clairton hosting Leechburg, both teams undefeated.
Yeah, and kind of unfortunate that Leechburg isn't sitting at 4-0 in conference play. Obviously, it probably would have been a win against Springdale had they played last week.
And eventually, I think, eventually it will.
Yeah, and, that is what it is. And you mentioned kudos to Springdale for even being able to play today. They take a drubbing, but Rochester's been really good this year. And not that they haven't been good over the last several years. They're going back to the Lovelace days. They've had some good players ever since. The running backs having a tremendous year down there in the Eastern Conference. And maybe they give Clairton a game. And keep in mind, Clairton has had to deal with, kind of a quasi-bye. It was a little earlier in the season, but both those teams have, in essence, had a bye week in the season. And they have a big-time meeting next week to see if anybody can kind of push the envelope with Clairton, not only in that conference, but I think a lot of people in 1A are thinking Fort Cherry, Clairton. I was sitting listening to the Scoreboard show a couple weeks ago after writing an article, and one of the guys in Permane Brothers came up to me and saw my HSSN shirt and mentioned something about 1A. He said, "Oh, it's going to be Fort Cherry and Clairton, right?" I'm like, "I don't know, probably. I haven't seen."
I don't know. Leave me alone.
It's Fort Cherry and Clairton, so we'll see if Leechburg has anything to say about it next week. But obviously a couple big wins there and easy situations for those two teams.
Way back in the day, a young Kyle Dawson cut his teeth on the Tri-County South Conference.
Yes.
This is a conference that is really the line of demarcation is clear. The haves and have-nots. Where Jefferson Morgan remains undefeated. They beat Beth Center 37-19. They are 4-0 in the conference. California 50, Carmichael's nothing. Trojans 4-0 in the conference. Avella 48, Mapletown 12. Eagles are 3-1, and Bentworth 42-0 over West Green. The Bearcats are 3-1.
Despite having gone to Plum and grown up on the east side of the city, I like to say I was born and raised in the Tri-County South. So it's a nice story down there, though. For years and years, that was, at least when I was in school, West Green around. At the top of that conference, California was always in the mix. It's good to see JM in there, and I know Avella has been one of the stories of the district this year as 6-1 start, and that hasn't happened in forever. I mean, they were nobodies when I was in school down there, so it's good to see that program kind of pick up the pieces a little bit. And I always will have a soft spot in my heart for the race of the Tri-County South. So hopefully that continues to go well at the top of that conference.
All right, just the City League and independent scene. University Prep 38-6 over Alderdice. Significant in that sets up a winner-take-all game next week to close out the City League schedule when University Prep plays Westinghouse. Both are 4-0 in the City League. Alderdice at 2-2 will finish in third place and play the loser of that game next week between the Wildcats and Bulldogs in the City League semifinals. Westinghouse loses tonight, first time all year, 28-24 at Karn City. DuBois beats Connellsville 38-24. Butler 35, University of West Virginia 27, and Albert Gallatin 62, Clear Springs, Maryland 27. The Colonials a perfect 7-0. All right, let's go to Class AA now. We'll start in the Midwestern Athletic Conference. By the way, before we do, Chris Lackner, our producer, shares a final. Bishop Canevin 54, Sarah Catholic 14. So indeed, the Crusaders 3-0 in conference play, tied with 4-0 for Cherry for the top spot in the Black Hills. MAC Conference, Western Beaver undefeated, 27-12. They win at Elwood City. Riverside 3-1. Panthers at home over Freedom 37-7. Look out, here comes Beaver Falls. They lost their first 4. They've won 3 straight and are now 3-1 in conference play. They win over Union 28-22. And New Brighton evens their conference record at 2-2 with a 38-35 victory over Mohawk.
Yeah, Beaver Falls test obviously comes in a couple weeks here with Riverside still on the schedule. Lost to Western Beaver, but an impressive couple of weeks for them. Just quickly going back to I know you mentioned Albert Gallatin being Team of the Week last week. I remember calling an AG Uniontown game while those two schools were still in the WPIAL and football, and both of them were on a double-digit losing streak, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's a really nice, impressive story for AG to be 7-0, and big kudos for that program. And I'd like to see a couple of those schools. Obviously, we'd all like to see a couple of those schools back in district play, so we'll see how that goes at the end of the year. But yeah, good couple of weeks for Beaver Falls. Obviously, Western Beaver and Riverside right now, the cream of the crop in that division, and that conference. We'll see who ends up coming away with that one.
Century Conference, Washington and Seton LaSalle will eventually have their showdown meeting, likely for the conference championship in week 9. We wait until then. Both teams one-sided winners tonight. Washington destroys Keystone Oaks 55-50, snapping the Golden Eagles 3-game win streak. Seton LaSalle 53, Stowe Rocks nothing, and Waynesburg Central wins their first conference game 36-6 at Carleton.
Yeah, I know it's the who's who of who Keystone Oaks came away with wins against coming into the day, but nevertheless, that's still an unbeaten conference team that was taken care of today. And you mentioned the Wash High Seton LaSalle matchup in a couple of weeks. You know, Washington looks like the real deal right now, and Seton LaSalle, I think a couple of people maybe, I don't want to say wrote that team off, but at the beginning of the year, obviously they were supposed to get a pretty big quarterback onto that roster that's now playing in West Virginia, and Anthony Smith, and they've kind of picked up the pieces and done what everyone kind of expected that program to do with some big-time playmakers. So really looking forward to that Week 9 matchup and seeing who comes away with that conference title.
Allegheny Conference in Class 2A. South Allegheny is 3-0. They're in action tomorrow. Homecoming for Shadyside Academy, so that's an afternoon tilt between the Gladiators and the Bulldogs. Who is tied with South Allegheny for first place? Looky here. Apollo Ridge in one of the bigger eyebrow raisers. There were several surprises tonight. This was one of them. Apollo Ridge 18, Steel Valley 14, Ironman losing for the first time in conference play. The Vikings are now 3-0. And Our Lady of the Sacred Heart 14, South Park 13. The troubles continue for the defending champs. Eagles lose their 4th straight and are now 0-3 in the Allegheny Conference.
Yeah. Greg Smith is hurting a little bit, our resident South Park Eagle, and I saw that score at halftime tonight. But hey, they make the game a little close. Obviously, South Allegheny had a real good year last year, kind of a resurgence of that program, and off to a great start this year, and a chance to go to 7-0 tomorrow. But you're right, that one was the one that came across our screens here at West Aid, and when we saw that score, man, that's a big-time eyebrow raiser, and they're no slouch, Steel Valley, so they might not be the Steel Valley of 5, 6, maybe 7, 8 years ago, but they're still legit and putting up a lot of points. So for AR to do that and off to a 5-2 start, I believe it is now, is 3-0 in conference play, whatever the record may be at the end of the night, that's a really impressive win for the Vikings to grab that against Steel Valley.
Yeah, everybody was kind of looking forward to Steel Valley and South Allegheny down the line. Now the big one next week, with South Allegheny hosting Apollo Ridge, all of a sudden is going to be on a lot of people's radars. All right, let's go to Class 3A now. In the Allegheny 7 Conference, another eyebrow raiser in overtime. Highlands 28, Freeport 27. First loss of the year for the Yellow Jackets, and leaves both the Golden Rams and the Jackets at 3-1 in the conference. Looking up at Imani Christian, the Saints remain undefeated, 61-0 over East Allegheny, and Burrell defeats Valley 41-21.
And Ibani had to do it ugly last week, so them getting back into the win column tonight and getting into first place alone now is the only unbeaten. I know that we have a couple buddies of mine from Freeport or around that area. We're pretty impressed with that start. I think that's, I don't want to say a bad loss, but it's not a great loss with how Freeport was playing. I think a lot of those people were maybe looking to see Freeport in week 9 when they get to play Imani. Maybe they take an undefeated record for that game, but obviously not meant to be. And Freeport, despite scoring 42 points a game coming into the night, takes a tough loss at the hands of the Golden Rams and 2 close rivals there.
The Interstate Conference began conference play last week, and 3 teams sit atop the conference at 2-0. Elizabeth Forward, they beat Derry 56-7. Mount Pleasant, they beat Greensburg-Salem 42-29. And one of the great stories of the year is Southmoreland, 41-0 winning on Cougar Mountain at York. The Scotties 2-0 in the conference, 7-0 for the season.
Yeah, with what, a 23-year-old head coach.
Yeah.
Again, I think probably the we not me mentality that Southmoreland took. I had a chance to see them at EF last year, and that wasn't a bad team last year. That a young first-time head coach has taken over, and that might be the story of the year. And I know that was mentioned maybe as a possibility last week on the roundtable when you and Matt were taking care of things. But another really impressive runaway win today. Obviously, that Southmoreland and Elizabeth Forward matchup, I think, is in week 8 is going to be the big one, the big test for Southmoreland. Under a new quarterback and new head coach, and kind of taking that program to where they're trying to go. But I think the Interstate Conference is still, at least as of right now, running through Elizabeth Forward and the incredibly impressive quarterback they have in Ryan Messina.
Yeah, I kind of sing their praises every week, but deservedly so. Anthony Smith, stud freshman quarterback, decides to leave the program. That whole, hullabaloo, where he was going to end up, sort of carried the off season.
And everyone forgot about him.
Yeah, Dawson Wolf takes over, and they are shining bright, and good for them. Western Hills Conference, Central Valley, they were up, and I want to say, I might be wrong on this, but I think they were up 34-0 in this game over North Catholic. Trojans chip away, but can't overcome the early deficit. 34-28, Central Valley wins an exciting one at J.C. Stone against the Trojans. First conference loss for North Catholic at 2-1. Central Valley improves to 3-1. Hopewell 2-2 as they crush McGuffey 63-0.
Yeah, we saw that one come across too, and it was a bit surprising. Obviously, North Catholic has had a pretty good year so far. For Central Valley, for the Warriors to be up as big as they were, and then when I was sitting here before I jumped on with you and I saw 34-28, I'm like, oh, all right, they made a game of it a little bit there. So that's obviously we'd rather have the games at the top of the conference be a little bit close and teams make a pitch for it, but real good win for Central Valley. I just wonder if they're even. I think they probably are, but Avonworth has been just so good this year and over the last several years, where you wonder if anybody's even going to sniff them in that conference or in the classification in general.
They have been so impressive, finally coming off that gauntlet of a schedule that they won them all impressively. They're going to be tough to beat, not in the conference, but in 3A overall, not only in the district, but in the state. A couple of non-conference finals, 2A, Hazada, Ligonier Valley, they win their first 67-13 over Charleroi, and Beaver improves to 4-3 on the season, 45-7 winners over Deer Lakes. All right, let's get to Class 4A now. We'll start in the Big Six Conference. Changing of the guard, Trinity 33, Thomas Jefferson 22. Char Valley goes for too late. They get it. They win 36-35 over Bell Vernon. Colts are now 6-1 overall. And Ringgold evens their conference record with a 47-7 victory over Laurel Highlands. Trinity 2-0. Char Valley 2-0. They meet next week at Hiller Stadium.
Yeah, and there was a lot of off-season buzz around that Chartiers Valley program. They were a 3-win team last year, obviously making a coaching change that was at least controversial. I think would be putting it lightly inside the Chartiers Valley School District. But to come away with what they've come away with at the beginning of the year, I think maybe everyone thought when they beat West Day in overtime at home and in their first game of the year, okay, they got to win, kind of whatever. But now they've rattled them all off, and they've got one of the better stories going. Steve Spence obviously comes from a Division III football program that in this area, and W&J has had a ton of success, 2 decades really going back under Mike Sirianni. So kudos to Chartiers Valley. And I know Thomas Jefferson was up, I believe it was 22-6 at halftime against Trinity. And we kind of went into the week, I think, around the district and saying that might be a game that maybe we raise the eyebrows at the end of the night, because Trinity is a pretty good football team, and TJ hasn't exactly been TJ this year. So an impressive win for Trinity. I know their star is Jonah Williamson, and a chance to see them, I think, last year or 2 years ago in the playoffs. But real impressive win for Trinity tonight, and that makes for even a better game next week between two schools. So I don't think you'd classify as rivals, but they're close enough together where I think it'll be a fun atmosphere next week.
Yeah, by the way, final is in Avonworth, 46-7 over Quaker Valley. So the Antelopes alone in first place in the Western Hills, 3-0. They are a perfect 7-0 on the season. Let's go from the Big Six and 4A to the Parkway Conference. Newcastle, now the team to beat. 34-14, they win at home over Montour. They beat Aliquippa at home last week. They get West Allegheny at home next week. Speaking of the Indians, they're now 1-1 after losing at home to Aliquippa, 19-7 game that Kyle had to call on the network. And Blackhawk wins, and they are 1-1 in conference play, 51-20 over Ambridge.
Yeah, West Day's in a little bit of a weird spot, I think, in the Parkway. I think they're just a couple of playmakers away on offense from really being a big-time factor. They got theirs against Ambridge. Obviously, they were going to get theirs against Ambridge. They scored 65 points in Guppy. But against a Moon team that I know is obviously an Allegheny 6 team up in 5A, they only scored 3. Got shut out by Peters Township, which is obviously another tremendous Allegheny 6 team. But they didn't really look much of anything at all offensively tonight, outside of a 41-yard touchdown run by Brody Cornell. But impressive win for Aliquippa, though the same way as TJ, it didn't feel at least tonight like Aliquippa. A little bit sloppy. The game really never got in a rhythm, I think, for a couple of reasons that if people watch the game or they go back and watch the archive, you'll hear us talking about why we felt that way. But how about the story in Newcastle? And that obviously that huge win last week over Aliquippa, first time since 87. They beat the Eclipse and doing it with a freshman quarterback. And James was on just before the roundtable talking about the effort to Marino Graham tonight. I had a chance to see that Montour team. I think they're still relatively young in terms of what they were against last year's team and what was lost with the quarterback position and everything else. But that's still not a bad football team and a team that can run it when it's running it well. The offense looks real good. So impressive for Newcastle and a chance to put it away next week when they play West Day. But for all intents and purposes, a chance to put it away next week.
Yep. Greater Allegheny Conference, I think now with all these question marks about Thomas Jefferson and Aliquippa, let's not sleep on Newcastle. Let's not sleep on Trinity. Let's not sleep on Char Valley. Let's not sleep on Mars. In the Greater Allegheny Conference, 56-0 over Knock. Hampton, 35-7 over Indiana. Probably the team to beat, especially with a healthy Keemon Spell. Everybody feels is McKeesport, but man, they got a scare tonight. Tigers 28, West Mifflin 21.
Yeah, West Mifflin gave him a game, and now that I think it's next week, the matchup between Mars and McKeesport, whoever comes away with that one has the inside track of the conference title. I was really impressed with Mars last year, seeing them in their playoff win in the quarterfinals against Montour, and impressed with them a couple weeks ago against Montour as well. Man, if they're running it well, they can really play offensively. The defense has been really good all year. They nearly beat Aliquippa a couple of weeks ago in non-conference play, if not for a bad 6 minutes or so. And talking with Eric Kasparovich after the game a couple of weeks back at Montour. But Real impressive win for all those teams as they kind of gear up for that big one next week in that conference. But I think you're right. In 4A, it kind of feels, again, with Aliquippa not being Aliquippa, and it depends on how healthy Team on Spell is, I think it's a little bit more open in 4A than perhaps it has been in the last few years.
Remember, it's a small tournament, only 3 weeks. Only 8 teams make it. So these battles in these conferences, there's no layups and there's no guarantees. They don't care what your name is. If you don't finish high enough, you're not going to make it to the postseason. 5A non-conference. I'll start with this first. Franklin Regional, huzzah! They win their first 21-10 over Fox Chapel. But the big one in this is Haran Zurikat, the Georgia recruit, 57-yard field goal, a new WPIAL record. At the time, put the Foxes up 10-0, but they lose 21-10. Kicking a football isn't what it used to be when Mark Mosley and those straightaway kickers back in the 70s.
No, it is not. And it seems like we were at a conversation about this with my buddies the other day during that tie on Monday, I think Monday Night Football, how it's just so easy for kickers in the NFL at this point where there's really no drama. But to see a high school kid booting through a 57-yard field goal, and that's not the only 50-plus yarder that's been hit in the last couple weeks. They're starting to catch like fire. I think in the olden days as a Plum guy, Pat McAfee, one of the better kickers that I've ever seen in high school football, and they're kind of putting him to shame at this point. Obviously Fox Chapel has been in the news for what some would say is the wrong reasons over the last few weeks, but a good win for Franklin Regional and a nice little added bonus for the Foxes tonight despite the defeat.
A lot of suspense going on for who will win various conference championships. That is not the case in 5A's Northeast Conference. It is pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered to Pine Richland. Rams 63, Penn Hills 19. Pine Richland improves to 4-0. Penn Hills falls to 2-1. That's the record for North Hills. Big win tonight that keeps their playoff hopes alive and really hurts your alma mater. Yep. North Hills 14, Plum 13. I mentioned again, North Hills 2-1, tied with Penn Hills for second place. Plum falls to 0-3.
Yeah, that interesting Northeast, and when we get to the Big East, we'll talk about as well. But obviously, Pine Richland's, there's all obviously, and it's warranted to some degree to talk about the Allegheny Six. But if Pine Richland or Woodland Hills or maybe Penn Trafford can get in the mix when it comes to the postseason against those, what I assume will be 5 teams from the Allegheny Six Conference when we get to the playoffs, then obviously that makes it a lot more fun in 5A. It'll be fun anyway. But, man, what an impressive start to the year, and Pine Richland just continues to be a juggernaut. A lot of people thought they'd fall off. Eric Kasparovich got booted out of that position, and John Ladon thinks the world of the job he's done and against his former school in Penn Hills. Do that to them. That's a Penn Hills team we thought was a pretty good team going into the night. And obviously, they're still a good football team, but man, did they take a beating.
Yeah, indeed they did. 63-19, Pine Richland a winner. Big East Conference, Woodland Hills. This game, do not read into this score because this was a good game into the fourth quarter. That's when Woodland Hills scored 31 unanswered. Wolverines win at Armstrong 50-14, and they really take control in the Big East Conference. Penn Trafford a winner to stay on the heels of the Wolverines, 33-23 at home over Gateway, and Kiski area now 2-2. Cavaliers 34, Latrobe 14.
Yeah, the matchup, Woodland Hills is already, I think, taken care of on Stafford pretty handily as well. So, again, I know it's kind of wishy-washy at this point, but that is a previously unbeaten in conference play Armstrong team that Woodland Hills takes care of when it comes down to it. In the final score today, it's the big playability of the Scoop Smiths of the world and some of those other playmakers for Woodland Hills. If they can unleash that big play, they're going to be able to score with anybody.
Allegheny 6, 5A. Peters Township remains undefeated. They win at home over Moon 21-10 to go to 2-0 in the conference. Tigers fall to 1-1. Upper St. Clair over South Fayette, 50-14, as the Panthers bounce back from that Peters loss last week. Both USC and South Fayette now at 1-1, and Bethel Park is at 1-1, 75-14 over Bowdoin.
Yeah, real good win. I know Moon was up 10-0 at one point against Peters Township, and again, we talked about a couple times. Greg and I saw that come across and kind of raised the eyebrows a little bit, but good work by Peters to stay with it, to come back and win that game and not allow any more points. That's a good Moon team, and they've been competitive under Ryan Lynn really for the bulk of his tenure at the helm of the Tigers program. And I saw him last week against Bethel Park. I've seen him a couple times this year. That's a good team. They can defend, and when they're moving the football well, they've added the pass to the repertoire. This year with Andrew Cross, who's a Division I baseball recruit. So big arm ability that Cross has, and they've got some playmakers on the outside. I would look out for them come playoff time, and they'll still have USC and South Fayette on the schedule, but have already taken care of business against Bethel Park. It's a gauntlet to the Allegheny Six, and it's not surprising to hear that was a good game and good win for USC. We thought South Fayette is still good, but to win that one going away, and then you have the breather that right now, no disrespect to Baldwin, but the breather that is Baldwin, if you're going to talk about that Allegheny Six conference. So it sets up an interesting last couple of weeks in that conference to see how it shakes out. It's always fun. We always overhype it maybe, but I think it deserves to be overhyped to some degree.
I don't know if that's possible. Those teams outside of Woodland Hills and obviously Pine Richland, you're talking maybe the next 4 or 5 best teams are coming from that Allegheny Six. Big one next week, by the way, Upper St. Clair hosting Bethel Park. 6A versus 5A non-conference, no contest. Central Catholic 69, Shaler 7. Titans got to regroup, though. They have a big one in the Northeast Conference next week. They're 1-1 in the conference. They play North Hills next week, and that is at Martorelli. The other 3 6A games, all competitive. North Allegheny improves to 3-1. They beat Mount Lebanon 28-19. Norwin now 2-1. They beat Hempfield 33-26. And Cannon-McMillan 2-1. They win, holding on to beat Seneca Valley 33-29.
Yeah, it was. I think you mentioned it earlier, right as I logged on. I was typing up my game story here, and you were talking with Randy and Mitch at that point. And 6A is 6A. I think I kind of share the same thought as you, as I'm kind of tired of the predictability that is 6A, right. And nothing we can do about it. But at least there's competitive games tonight, and we'll see if that translates come playoff time. I don't know that it will. But NA wasn't up big all night, and they come away with a win. Cannon Mac and NA next week should be a good game. Norwin's been a good story this year. They win a rivalry game tonight and kind of solidify their playoff hopes a little bit. But it's good to have competitive games. I just my notes say 6A is 6A. It's just that it is what it is. In 6A, like I don't know that there are many. That's why I didn't want to start in 6A. I just don't know that there are many interesting confounding thoughts on 6A that haven't already been said. You're going to see Central Catholic and North Allegheny, all that more than likely in the championship game, and we've already seen it once this year. We'll see if it's any different come playoff time.
Good stuff, my friend. On the round table, making his first and probably not last appearance, the one, the only, Kyle Dawson. Kyle, thank you, sir. You have yourself a heck of a weekend.
Yep. You too, and I'll make sure I'm not locked out. If I am locked out, I'm going to blame you when I get to the gate.
Don't dump out yet. Don't dump out yet. We're going to wrap it up, but don't dump out yet.
Sounds like
thanks to Kyle Dawson for joining us on the roundtable. Thanks to our producer, Chris Lackner. Great job all day long. I'm Don Rebel. We thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. A couple more games tomorrow. The big one, South Allegheny Shadyside Academy. And then on to week 7 come next week. And lots of games. Check out our website, TribHSSN, for the whole menu of games that you can listen to. For Kyle, for Chris, I'm Don Rebel. Thank you for joining us here on the WPIAL Scoreboard Show, Week 6 edition on the Trib Live High School Sports Network.